taking those from nobody.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
Welcome into Celtics Postgame Live, everybody. I'm your host, Justin Lowe. Alongside with me, Seamus Zarlingo, my co-host, a.k.a. Celtics Every Day. And the Boston Celtics get yet another epic victory, 125-97 over the fourth place Utah Jazz out in the West. Seamus, let's start off with your thoughts. I mean, this is becoming a very normal occurrence for the Celtics. This was a big blowout win for them, and it's not like I was expecting a blowout win. I thought the Celtics should go out here and compete, but I didn't think they'd go out in this type of fashion.
I'm waiting for the real season now because we talk about with all these contenders, or at least I've talked about this in the past, where all the contending teams, the 82-game season is just a buildup for the real season, and that is in the playoffs. Because ultimately, when you enter the playoffs, everybody is 0-0, right? Everybody made it to that singular point. And now for the Celtics, over the next 8 games, yes, we want to get a good seed, but look at the standings. Do we want to play the Brooklyn Nets down coming off the playing game? Do we want to play in that 3 seed? Do we want to go after that number 1 seed potentially? Depends what, the standings look like moving forward. But right now, the Celtics are poised to make a giant run. And I hope they don't let us down, because right now we're seeing some of the most dominant basketball out of this team that Mike Gorman mentioned it. This looks like the 2008 Celtics.
Yeah.
I mean, this is legitimately, I thought to myself the other night, this might be the best team since I started my page that I've ever seen from the Celtics over the past 10 years, at least since Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett were here. And right now, we're only 8 games from the playoffs, and we're doing things like this. We're beating the Utah Jazz by 30. We're beating the Denver Nuggets by 30. What we're doing right now is pure domination. And we're only 8 games away from the playoffs. We're not in December. We're not in January. We're not a team that people are looking at going, oh, did they get hot too early? No. This team is turning up at the right time, and no one, absolutely no one in the NBA right now looks capable of beating the Celtics, and that's just what it is.
They're rocking and rolling, mainly rocking. I mean, they are rocking teams. As you mentioned, we just beat the Jazz by 30. We beat Denver by 20. We beat Golden State by 22. The Celtics are rolling, and especially on these West Coast teams. And we all know how powerful the Eastern Conference got over the offseason, but these Western Conference teams out West, they're unbelievable as well. We saw what the Utah Jazz were very capable of just a few months ago when we played them in Utah. They absolutely destroyed us from the perimeter. That wasn't the case tonight. This is a whole different Celtics team. In the span of a week, the Celtics beat the Golden State Warriors, the 3 seed in the West, the 4 seed in the West, and the 6 seed in the West, and lost to the 5th seed in the West by a buzzer beater 3, or last second 3. The Celtics are contenders. I don't know what else people need to, this isn't us being biased. Trust me, this isn't us being biased. If you really think we're being biased, go look at what we were saying about these guys three months ago, and we were just as on them as anybody else. But this is, I mean, and their scoring, their offense has been looking very good as well. And tonight was unreal. I think they started, was it 10 for 10, 12 of 13, or 12 of 13 of 15, something like that in the first quarter, which is absolutely outrageous to begin with, whether you're a good offensive team or not. Marcus Smart had 9 first quarter assists, which is ties the most in a quarter since Rajon Rondo back in 2014. He finished with 13 assists. Peyton Pritchard, Seamus, continuing his phenomenal shooting numbers. He shot 4 of 6, 3 of 4 from deep, 11 points off the bench, 2 steals, coming up huge defensively in that fourth quarter to help the Celtics seal the deal. 17 minutes of playing time. But I want to talk about somebody really. Wait, go ahead and say something. You look like you were about to say something.
Oh, well, you made the point of their offense has been just phenomenal as of late. And we've talked about that a lot this season, where defensively throughout the season, they've been pretty good. And right now, they're at an elite level defensively. But back in December and November, they were still really good defensively.
Correct.
However, we always had concerns on their shooting and their ability to create offense outside of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But right now, I'm just looking at their game log right now, and I've still been saying, sometimes their shooting can be a little sus. That argument might need to be abandoned because in the last couple of games here, so in the last, during the road trip, the 4-game road trip, the Celtics shot 44% from 3. During the West Coast road trip, 52% from the floor. And going all the way back to, let's go all the way back to after the All-Star break, when we faced the Nets. Since All-Star break, the Celtics are shooting 37% from 3, a little bit lower, of course, still a really respectable percentage for an entire team. And from the field, they're shooting 48%. So right now, the Celtics, not only are we seeing them connect on another level in terms of ball movement and swinging around the perimeter and finding open shots, but they're actually hitting the open shots now, which is a huge difference from the beginning of the season when we constantly sat here and went, if these guys could just make their shots, they would be able to close out these games. They'd be able to pull out more games. And at the beginning of the season, that wasn't the case. Yet now they're at a level that is just unprecedented. It's unprecedented where they're at right now.
And especially Peyton Pritchard, Seamus. I mean, the West Coast, we talked about this West Coast trip and how big it was for the Celtics, but especially guys like Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, even Grant Williams had a huge game in OKC and against the Joker, the MVP, Jokic in Denver. But Peyton Pritchard really lit it up on that road trip, was shooting at a highly efficient number. Defensively, he's one of the smaller guards in the league, but that doesn't seem to matter because he's a menace on the on-ball defense. Tonight, he had 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and assists, shot 4 of 6, 3 of 4 from long range. What have you seen from Peyton Pritchard? Because this is exactly not only what we've been waiting for, but this is exactly what the Celtics needed, especially approaching playoff time.
Yeah, before I hit on Peyton Pritchard, I should mention, going back to the All-Star break, that did not include the game tonight where the Celtics shot 19 of 36, 52.8% from 3. Tonight was absolutely ridiculous. Again, 19 threes. You should be able to blow out a team anytime you're making that many threes. But back to Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard is a hooper. Okay, we've seen it. He looks like Summer League Pritchard right now. That shot where
Pritchard.
He basically, I don't remember who was guarding him, but he did that little crossover, that up and under move, and he didn't beat the shot clock, but he made the shot nonetheless. And that was just an amazing moment that didn't count. But Peyton Pritchard, we talked about it many times. His ability to make shots with this club is going to be the difference on whether or not he's out there on the floor or not. Because defensively, yes, he's going to have limitations because he's a smaller player, and that's just going to happen for any smaller player out there. We saw with Isaiah Thomas, we saw with Kemba Walker, and even a little bit with Kyrie Irving, who's still a little bit bigger than those guys.
Correct.
But Peyton Pritchard now, he's hitting shots, he's handling the ball well, and he's making good decisions constantly. And not only that, but like I always say with this team, he makes sense with this team right now. He makes sense with this rotation. Before, he didn't make sense next to guys like Josh Richardson and Dennis Schroeder, and you could throw out Marcus Smart in there and pair one of those other guys with him. He didn't make sense in that rotation. You cannot play Schroeder and Pritchard together, and Schroeder was supposed to be your sixth man. So how are you going to manage the bench minutes, or how was Ime supposed to manage the bench minutes? Yet now you look at the bench, you have Derek White coming off the bench, and everybody's problem with Derek White is, well, he doesn't make enough shots. Well, who comes in and fills that void? It's Peyton Pritchard. It's Grant Williams. It's these other guys on the bench that can make those tough shots and make those shots, particularly in the corner. And Peyton Pritchard, his ability to make those shots and also his ability to get after it on the defensive end of the floor, even though he is a liability at times with his size, his effort is contagious on that end. And we know how versatile and how good this team can defend. And when that effort is contagiously making its way around the team, spreading around the team, that is only making the whole ball club better. And Peyton Pritchard right now, we thought he was a project player at one point, and yet now he is somebody that is a bona fide part of this rotation with the Celtics right now. And they're a championship level team.
Well, I swear to God, this is actually perfect timing. I'm not calling anything out, but Ian, welcome. Our next guy we're going to talk about, Ian. Thankfully, you joined at the perfect time. It's Daniel Tice, huh? Daniel Tice has been phenomenal. He had a great West Coast trip, but look, Daniel Tice, we mentioned it a few years ago. He was our third string center, then worked his way up from Baines, Horford, and at times Robert Williams, and he kind of solidified that starting role before he got traded. Now he's back. He's kind of going to go back to that third string center, but Grant Williams, when in foul trouble, had 3 quick fouls in the first 6 minutes of the game, and then in the first 6 minutes of his night. And then Daniel Tice came in and made an impact on both ends of the floor. He finished with 11 points tonight, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, an assist, 5 of 8 from the floor. How big is that? We talked about Pritchard. How big is that, Ian, for Daniel Tice to step into that role off the bench?
Daniel Tice, this was a legacy game for him tonight. I can't hate on it. I can't hate on it. Daniel Tice was absolutely huge for us tonight. Grant Williams went out with 3 fouls in the first quarter, and that's not the most ideal thing. But Daniel Tice stepped up. He played an incredible game tonight. I mean, that block on Jordan Clarkson when Clarkson tried to go up for the dunk and he just blocked it. Like, I think he was just tired of getting dunked on by everybody, and the fact that the NBA showed the Jeff Green dunk instead of showing any other highlight from that game. But I mean, Daniel Tice, he played an incredible game tonight, and I didn't give my thoughts on the game yet, but I don't care. I'm officially going to become a green teamer. The Celtics are winning the championship. I don't care. I mean, this team is insane right now. I don't see a team who's going to stop them. I don't care. Go for the number 1 seed. Who cares if you have to potentially play the Nets in the first round? Who cares if you have to play the Raptors in the first round? Get the number 1 seed, because this team is the number 1 team in the East right now. I don't care. This team is absolutely insane.
Shout out to all the haters as well. I mean,
exactly.
I mean, right now, yes, we were quote unquote haters at the beginning of the season or in December when we were in here. At least me, I was off this team at one point. I was like,
yeah, but were we like
that was a different team?
But trade Brown and Tatum, fire Udoka.
Yes, it's those people. It's the people who thought that this operation needed to be blown up entirely. Yeah. For me, I held hope in this team next season, right? This team there were still pieces there that you could go out and compete with. You have the core pieces there. And at the end of the day, it's all about surrounding those core pieces with comparable talent that can go out there and compete. Well, right now, they traded away Dennis Schroeder, trade away Josh Richardson, trade away Ennis Freedom. You bring in Daniel Tice, Derek White. You open up minutes for Peyton Pritchard, who right now, Peyton Pritchard, he looks like he's an addition.
The greatest shooter in the NBA.
Yeah. And Grant Williams as well. All of these guys, the rotation makes way more sense now. And praise to Brad Stevens and shout out to all the haters who didn't believe in this core team. It's really not this team particularly, but this core of Tatum and Brown and Smart, these guys have been together for years now. That has to be factored into this whole equation
but they don't play well together. We need to break them up. How are they ever going to get the same shots?
So this team has been together for years now. Just think, they've been together since the 17-18 season. How many teams from that season are still somewhat intact? You look at the Warriors. Who else? There aren't many teams. Utah. I guess you could say Utah. Donovan Mitchell was a rookie. I guess Jason Tatum was a rookie at that point as well. But you look at these teams, we just beat the Utah Jazz's ass.
Yeah. No, we just completely destroyed them. We treated them like they were the Houston Rockets. Like, I mean, that was just an incredible ass kicking right there.
And I thought tonight should have been a national TV game. The 2 4 seeds going at it. I thought tonight should have been. And of course, look, this team is the real deal. And I don't think it's us being green teamers at all. I think it's just we're Celtics fans. We have every right to believe in this team should be the number 1 seed after what we've seen since the new year. Look,
it's scary.
It is scary. And you know
it's
who else
so
is
scary. It's so scary.
You know who else is scary? He's our center, number 44, the Time Lord, Robert Williams. He is tonight's player spotlight. He had a double-double, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 4 monstrous blocks. Let's take a look at the player spotlight leaderboard for the season. Robert Williams in that 4th spot, getting his 5th player spotlight of the season. Robert Williams creeping up on Marcus Smart for that top 3 spot. We'll see. He's going to need a few more of those 4-block, 10 rebound games, but I'm sure he can get it done. We haven't talked about him yet, guys. We've talked about some nice role players, Brown, Tatum. We touched on Pritchard and Tice. How about Rob Williams stepping up against Rudy Gobert just nights after stepping up against Nikola Jokic and dominated tonight's game?
I don't know how Robert Williams can't be first team all defense this year. He legitimately has to be first team all defense this year. He's been healthy, so he's played pretty much all the games this year. He's matched up with some of the best centers in the NBA. Nikola Jokic, he's held his own. Rudy Gobert, he played absolutely amazing tonight. I mean, he's faced up Embiid. Embiid's Embiid, so you can only do as much as you can, but he's been pretty good against Embiid. I mean, name any center in the East. Which one has outplayed Robert Williams this season? At least in the second half. I can't think of another center this season that has outplayed Robert Williams so far. And, I mean, he should seriously be considered as Defensive Player of the Year this year. I know we've been going back and forth between Smart and Rob, but Rob should really, really be in consideration for Defensive Player in the Year.
Wait, I'll give 2 centers who you missed. Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo. After that, it's Robert Williams.
Yeah.
I
forgot about Bam. That was my bad.
Well, Bam hasn't played a lot this season though, so I guess that's actually
he's been injured. So
yeah, but otherwise, Joel Embiid. But after that, Robert Williams is right there. But I look at the other conference and someone that Robert Williams, if he is going to be in this Defensive Player of the Year conversation, the other player that he's going to have to compete with, Rudy Gobert. And undoubtedly, Rudy Gobert, multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, somebody that every single season we talk about, okay, he's going to be at the top of this, of this award standings list here. Rudy Gobert, first of all, I believe nobody's talking about it right now, but in the next couple of years or maybe this offseason or maybe next season, people are going to be talking about how terrible of a contract he owns.
Oh my God.
He's under a 5-year Supermax extension. And for me, I look at Rudy Gobert and I go, who would you rather have, Robert Williams or Rudy Gobert? Is it
right now, Robert Williams?
Exactly. Right now, even offensively, I look at Robert Williams and I go, there's a little bit more there offensively to Robert Williams.
Like especially offensively.
And yes, Robert Williams can still grow as an offensive player.
Right. And defensively, Rudy Gobert, yes, he has more of the length, and yes, he has more of the, say, IQ on that end of the floor. But Rob, he's still a really young player. His athleticism is out of this world. His ability to block shots is out of this world. And also, one has to look at Robert Williams, too. He's a way better perimeter defender than Rudy Gobert. That's just a fact. Yeah. And I just look at the 2 centers right now, those 2 guys. Rudy Gobert, he's under Supermax. We signed Robert Williams to a $14 million per year deal over the next 4 seasons. And Robert Williams, he's probably, a top 7 center at least in the NBA right now? He's been phenomenal this entire season, even going back to last season. Remember that whole stretch where up near these type of numbers in 19 minutes, in 20 minutes play? I don't know. He might have played that much tonight because Ime does stagger his minutes a little bit to get him. He only played 24 tonight. But Williams, he needs to be in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know if he's going to win it. He needs to be – I don't know if they – correct me if I'm wrong. They do positions on the all-defensive team, so they're going to have to make a decision at the top with the center position of who's actually going to be there. And Robert Williams, he deserves as much praise as anyone else in the league right now because what he's doing on a nightly basis, maybe not all-star level, but his value and importance to this team cannot be understated. And right now, they're one of the best teams in the NBA.
Celtics. So
that's
Celtics
just what it
won
is.
tonight, and just a really quick standings update. Boston won tonight. Philly is yet to play their game yet. They're taking on the LeBron-less Los Angeles Lakers on ESPN. So after we conclude this post-game show, check that one out. But the Miami Heat, just a couple nights after losing to the who was it? Who did they just lose to? They didn't have any.
They lost to the Sixers.
The Sixers, who didn't have Harden and Embiid. They just got absolutely wiped on their home court. 118-104 is the final score to the Golden State Warriors, who had no Curry, no Thompson, and no Draymond Green. None of their big three played tonight. There was an issue with in the huddle. Udonis Haslem and Jimmy Butler had to get separated. Eric Spoelstra actually threw a clipboard at Jimmy Butler, if you guys haven't seen the clip yet. So, look, the Celtics now move to, is it a game and a half behind the Miami Heat? 2 games behind the Miami Heat.
We're a game and a half now.
Super, this 1 seed is really legit. There's some standings games to watch tomorrow night. Raptors and Cavs, Bucks and Wizards, Bulls and Pelicans. And then here's where it gets fun, because Saturday night, Celtics don't play again until Sunday. Saturday night, the Celtics could pick up wins without even playing. The Raptors play the Pacers, the Bulls play the Cavaliers, the Nets play the Heat, the Bucks play the Grizzlies. That is going to be one of the biggest days coming down the stretch of the season here for the Celtics, and they don't even play a game that day. And then Friday, Sixers are in LA to play the Clippers. You can catch that on NBA TV. And then Knicks and the Heat square off on Friday as well. So, guys, we only have a few weeks left of the season, and this season, the standings are nowhere close to being finalized. Where do you expect the Celtics to finish out? I think top 4. I think the Celtics are over 3 games above the Chicago Bulls.
Miami Heat. The Miami Heat.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned that video, but I mean, what is going on there?
Were you just watching it when I was talking about it?
Yes, I just went to go look it up. That is not good. That is not.
They lost to the Warriors without Clay, without Draymond, without Otto Porter,
without Steph.
They pretty much just lost without Steph. They pretty much just lost to Jordan Poole.
And then the night before, they lost to the Tyrese Maxey, and they didn't have Embiid or Harden. So that's frustrating. Those are 2 big games coming down the stretch of the season for Miami, in Miami as well. And they
was in Miami.
It was.
We're seeing the Miami stock go down right now. Granted,
what was that?
We're seeing the Miami stock go down right now. Granted, the Nets. I don't know if anybody saw that Shams report that just came out, but he's apparently going to be back. Kyrie Irving is going to be back to play home games, pretty much effective immediately, starting soon. I don't know what the exact report said. But right now, look at the East. Just look at the state of the East. Look at the state of the West, and tell me right now how this isn't completely shaped for the Celtics.
Can I say something? I don't know if this is a bold take, but I'm going to say this. If Toronto bumps up to that 7th seed and Cleveland falls down to the 6th seed, I don't think the Cavs make the playoffs. I think the Brooklyn Nets.
So who would they have to beat to play?
I think
Toronto.
If the Cavs fall to 7, they'd have to play the Nets. If the Nets stay at 8, they'd have to play the Nets in Cleveland. Then if Cleveland loses, they'd have to play winner of Charlotte or Atlanta. Don't forget, Jared Allen may not be available. No Colin Sexton.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think if the Cavs fall down to 7th, I think they might be. They might be done. They might be toast, which sucks because they had a really, really good season.
To be fair, though, can Atlanta and Charlotte hold up defensively for 2 games in a row?
Yeah,
true. Right. I don't know about that. But honestly,
it's tough to look at though if you're a Cavs fan, because that is scary. Because hey, you don't go in there with no Allen and no Sexton and you have to play in the play-in tournament potentially 2 games. That's not looking pretty. That's not fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough because I really like Cleveland. I like their future. I like Darius Garland a lot. I like Evan Mobley. I love Evan Mobley. But I mean, you kind of make a good point because I mean, Atlanta is kind of going crazy right now. At least the past couple games, Trae Young has played really, really well. And honestly, I don't know if Cleveland can keep up with Trae Young or LaMelo. If LaMelo is, I mean, the Hornets are kind of struggling right now, but I don't know. It's a little tough for Cleveland. And like, I think Cleveland is going to make a legit playoff. They're going to make a legit playoff spot next year or the year after. But I mean, you kind of make a good point. Toronto could easily jump them right now. And unless Toronto gets on a losing streak and the Nets get on a winning streak, the Nets could potentially jump them right now. So it's looking tough for Cleveland right now because the Nets are what, 2 games behind the Raptors?
Yeah, they're only 2 games.
Yeah.
So. And also with Chicago, as crazy as it sounds, they're pretty banged up right now. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games. They're really, really struggling. They're only 2 games above that 7th spot, that play-in tournament, and some teams still have 8 to 10 games left. So anything can change towards the bottom of this playoff bracket. And who knows? Chicago could fall down to 7 and have to play their way back into the top 6. Who knows? But anything like this is crazy, especially with Kyrie Irving coming back officially. They're starting to get healthy. We don't know exactly how Ben Simmons is going to play if he does come back. How will that fit in? Because he's basically, if he comes back, either the last week of the season or first round of a playoff series. That's tough. That is really, really tough, especially when you haven't played in over a year. Charlotte, that would make a fun playoff series to see if Charlotte got in there and, got into a first round series. I think that a LaMelo Ball first round series would be fun. They'd probably get swept or lose in 5, honestly, but that'd be cool to see. But that's something you have to consider though. If you're Chicago and Cleveland, you're really, really banged up. You're really struggling at the moment, and you're only a couple games above that play-in tournament. So anything could happen here.
Yeah, and right now the grand conclusion is every single team in the East seems to have a flaw on the back of themselves that the Celtics simply do not have right now. The Celtics are beating everybody. They're winning everybody by double digits. They're not losing games. The last game we lost was that Kevin Garnett retirement ceremony that, personally, I thought we were going to win the entire game. We just never really made that one singular run that put us over the edge. We finished with less than 100 points. Other than that game, I mean, we've lost like 2 games since the All-Star break. And right now, everybody else in the East, you look at the Heat, have that little altercation going on the sideline. The Sixers, I think they simply don't have enough with their roster outside of Embiid and Harden. And who knows how motivated Harden's going to be come playoff time. Milwaukee is certainly, I think Milwaukee's going to end up being our biggest competitor, either them or Brooklyn. Those are the 2 teams that I look at in the East. They're going to be there at the end in the East Conference Finals, one of those 2 teams. And after that, the Bulls, Cavs, Raptors, they're just simply not as good as the Celtics right now. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
No, what about the Sixers though? Because everybody kind of talks about the Bucks and the Nets and the Heat, but what about the Sixers? Like, you don't think the Sixers could give the Celtics trouble? I mean, I wouldn't want to sit there. I talked about it the other night. I don't want to sit through a Sixers series mainly because I don't feel like watching 50 free throws in only the first quarter. And I don't want to see Robert Williams foul out in the first quarter, 7 straight games. That suck. But what about the Sixers? I mean, I think that I wouldn't want to see the Sixers in the playoffs, to be honest with you.
I think the Sixers
actually
are kind
love
of
the matchup
underrated right now.
Really?
The Sixers, they just don't have a lot away from Embiid and Harden. Georges Niang is playing a lot. I see Georges Niang playing for them on a nightly basis. He was legitimately
an 8th, the one who hit the side of the backboard the other night against the Nuggets?
Yes, he was. Yeah, Justin, I think your phone is going crazy right now. Your phone
this freaking no, it's Rob, and I don't know how to shut my ringer off on the computer. I don't know how to do that. I'm gonna tell him to stop texting me. Rob's under the weather for the viewers at home. Okay.
It's the weather change in the team. Our team's too hot. Went from being too cold to too hot. But
it's the allergies.
What were we just talking about? I don't even remember.
We're talking about the Sixers and if they're
wait. Can we just bring why Rob's not here? Can we just bring up his betting woes in the beginning of the season since he's not here?
That was the funniest inside joke that we had for like 2 weeks. That was the greatest joke that we.
It was great. I mean, the poor kid had to switch colleges because he couldn't pay the.
Don't do him like that. Don't do him like that, Justin. Come on.
No, he says he went home for winter break, but I don't know if that was because he made some Christmas Day bets on the games. Celtics.
Well, in that Christmas Day game against Milwaukee.
Yeah, ooh. I think he bet the house on. I think he bet his dorm on that, and he had to get the hell out of there.
That was. How did we lose that game? I still have no idea.
Just like we lost the Knicks game and all of those games, and the Portland game.
I know it's just recurring theme throughout the season. If we could just win 5 more games, we'd be the number 1 seed right now. But back to the Sixers for a second.
Yeah,
a Sixers-Celtics matchup to me, the Sixers just don't have enough away from Harden and Embiid. If you're looking at the Sixers, Harden and Embiid have to dominate while they're out on the floor. Their minutes out on the floor, they have to dominate with the ball. And with how good the Celtics team is defensively, if they can compromise or minimize either one of those players for stretches of games, periods of games, they're going to be in a pretty good spot to go out the Sixers because you look Tyrese Maxey, still a second-year player, not all that experienced. You look at, I mentioned Georges Niang is playing a lot. Tobias Harris is one of the most inconsistent players in the NBA. The rest of the roster, there's just not much there. There really isn't. And the one thing I do worry about, Celtics and really particularly the refs sending the Sixers to the line constantly, which I believe is just an inevitability. However, like I said, if they can minimize Harden or Embiid at any moment during the game, particularly Harden, because we've seen Harden, he's simply not the same player he was in Houston a couple of years ago right now. And if you can minimize either one of those two, I think the Celtics are going to be in a really, really good spot to win that series. And maybe it does go 6 or 7 games because of the mass amount of free throws the refs will inevitably give Harden and Embiid. But I think in a series against the Sixers, I like the Celtics. Of course, I like the Celtics. Celtics every day, but that's just my viewpoint on a series like that.
I just watched that Heat fight, the argument. Yeah, that was crazy. Udonis Haslem looked like he was about to go after Jimmy Butler right there. And Eric Spoelstra, I don't think I've ever seen Eric Spoelstra that pissed before. Eric Spoelstra is I don't know if he's a really calm coach, but I've never seen him that pissed off before. I don't know what Jimmy Butler said to him that got him so mad.
That guy has been around Miami for so many years. He started as their video coordinator or something like that in his 20s, and that guy has not aged. If you look at pictures of him, he has not aged.
He looks the exact same from the time LeBron was there to right now.
He looks great. He looks great. And imagine how much stress he's gone through from his championship years. He's been there in rebuilding years. But he looked very animated there, and you can kind of tell Jimmy. But I wonder what Jimmy said or did that was wrong, because it wasn't like Spoelstra was trying to kind of stop it or anything. It looked like he was defending Haslem, or he was on Haslem's side, unless he was telling Jimmy to cut it out and Jimmy just kept on going, and that's when Spoelstra finally threw the clipboard at him. But I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't know what's going on there. I mean, I'd be pretty frustrated too if I lost 2 straight games to my home court when both teams were missing their top 3 players. Excuse my French, but I'd be rip shit too. I would. And that's not a great look. That's not a great look at all, especially when you're slipping in the standings And you're doing that in front of your home fans. It's not like you're on the road and you can kind of sneakily argue with each other. They're doing it right in front of their own fans, and doesn't look good. I've listened to Udonis Haslam, by the way. That guy's a badass, and he's been around. He's been on all the Heat. He's won the Heat a lot of championships. So I think he's been a part of every Heat championship, if I'm not mistaken.
Pretty much, yeah.
I wouldn't argue with him. I don't care if you're Jimmy B. I wouldn't argue with Haslam.
He should honestly just be an assistant coach at this point. Like,
I think,
he's a player. He's a player, but he should just be an assistant coach.
No, he's like Garnett on his second stint with the Timberwolves.
Go look at.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that.
Go look, everyone, right now. Pull up your phones. Go look up Udonis Haslam's basketball reference. He legitimately has not been a player since 2015-16. Yeah, it's 2021-22. Yeah. It was 6-7 years ago. He was essentially done as a player, and he's now just a sort of, like you said,
now he just goes in whenever he faces Dwight Howard and just gets in Dwight's head. Him and Dwight Howard have some beef. Yeah. But, like, there's times where they'll be getting blown out or they're blowing out the opponent, and usually you put your bench in, and you can see the Heat players trying to drag Haslam into the game, and Haslam's like, no, I'm not going in. I think he just likes to wear a jersey. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if it keeps him young, but hey, I'm not going to complain. I don't hate the guy.
He had that quote a couple of years ago where he was like, we don't win 2 titles with LeBron without me, or something of that nature, suggesting that something behind the scenes happened, and he, kind of he righted the ship and I just wonder what has happened in Miami with him for him to now be in essentially his 6th or 7th season where he's just not playing at all. They're just using a roster spot on him, whatever. But I'm glad that we jumped on this Miami situation, because remember back in November 1st actually was the real date when Marcus Smart called out Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown essentially, and even Ime Udoka at the postgame presser, and he was saying, I can't do much when I'm standing in the corner, and the rest of the league just went nuts. They went absolutely nuts. They went, oh, look at the Celtics chemistry. Just they can never get it right. It's like 2018 all over again. Well, look at us now, and look at a team like the Miami Heat. Look at Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra. I tend to think in that situation, I love Jimmy Butler as a player, and I love his fire out there on court and his effort. However, this is not a new occurrence for Jimmy Butler at all. We had that situation in Minnesota with the whole practice thing, and he essentially scheduled Rachel Nichols for a jump appearance that same day. There was no coincidence whatsoever. He forced his way out of Minnesota.
Rachel Nichols fired because they may or may not have done anything in the bubble.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And even looking back to his Chicago days, even during that time, if I'm not mistaken, him and Fred Hoiberg didn't have the best relationship in the world at that period of time. And right now, you look at a situation like that, and maybe, people said this, like I said, about the Celtics at the beginning of the season. Oh, look at their chemistry. Same thing with Jimmy Butler. This situation is coming up again. Maybe it doesn't affect them later on down the line. Maybe they are tight in the clubhouse. Maybe Udonis Haslam goes into the locker room and just lays into everyone and the whole situation is fixed. But right now, they're at the number 1 seed. They are who we are chasing, them and the Bucks, who are now ahead of us right now, or we're tied with the Bucks. But going into the playoffs, they don't look particularly good right now. And guess who does? The Boston Celtics. I looked really weird when I did that. That was crazy.
Celtics are wrong.
Seamus, someone called you the Batman in the comments.
No, that's Grant Williams. It's
true.
I'm like, who's another character from like The Dark Knight? Because there were so many Batman characters over time. There's so many Batman movies. You had the Michael Keaton Batman. You had the who played Batman? Christian Bale in The Dark Knight. Now it's Grant Williams. Grant Williams as Batman. Robert Pattinson had his moment, but now it's Grant Williams. He is Batman.
I saw that movie the other day. That movie was crazy good. Like, honestly, I didn't see the Twilight movies, so I had no idea about Robert Pattinson's acting skills, but he's pretty good.
Shout out Adam West Batman as well. Totally forgot about him.
R.I.P. to Adam West.
All right.
Yes. When we get to the
Adam West, what you guys are talking
about. We've turned into a movie review.
I have
podcast.
No clue
we are no
about
longer
anything
Celtics,
about superheroes.
BSL and Celtics. We are now talking about the Batman and the movie.
It's like the beginning of the season when we're sitting here like, man, this team just cannot get anything going. This is just, we have nothing to talk about. Now it's like, wow, this team is clicking on all cylinders. There's no negativity surrounding this team whatsoever. There are a couple of questions that still surround certain areas, of course, that's going to happen with every single team. But it's like, yeah, we just beat the Utah Jazz by 30, essentially. Really should have been 30 if not for Eric Paschall Shaq dunk at the end of the game, which was weird.
Eric Paschall's jump shot is so funny. Did you see his jump shot? I was watching him shoot, and I'm like, he literally just like contorts his body every single time he goes up for a jump shot. I was just laughing anytime that he did it. No offense to Eric Paschall, because I mean, if we played in real life, that jump shot probably would be hit all over me anytime. So I'm not claiming to be a good basketball player, but I mean, that jump shot is kind of crazy.
Eric Paschall's the guy that made me realize how crazy college athletes' lives are. Because I remember when he was at Villanova, I followed him on Instagram or Twitter or whatever social media app. And there was a moment, I believe he was at Nova for multiple years. He wasn't some type of one and done guy, but he had this tournament run. And I remember he was posting something about going to class or something like a week or two later. I'm just like, wow, college athletes are crazy. Student athletes are crazy. You think that, you see all this March Madness and these guys, it seems like they're famous in a sense. And it's like, nope, they're just like us pretty much at the end of the day. Until, of course, they ink that first deal and that second deal, of course, in the NBA, and they become millionaires and their life is set. But yeah, shout out Eric Paschall for I don't know. That was just the one player that I looked at and went, wow, college student athletes are crazy. But once we get into this portion of the show, what more?
This is when we probably should wrap it up, but we're too busy talking about other things to where Justin just kind of stops paying attention to us and just lets me and Seamus talk about random.
I don't know a Batman. I don't know anything about Batman or superheroes or anything. But
you got to see the new movie though. The new movie was pretty sick though. I'm not really huge into superheroes either, but the new movie was pretty sick.
I haven't seen. The only way I'll watch the Batman is if Grant Williams.
Yes. Keep going. No, keep going.
Cameo.
You said the exact name that I thought you were going to say.
If Grant Williams has 2 more double-doubles by the end of the season.
Oh, okay. It's on live. It's on camera. It's there.
If Grant Williams gets 2 more double-doubles, I'll watch Batman.
We have to when we have us.
If he has 10 threes in one game, I'll watch the whole Batman series.
If we have 3 people in here, we should. If somebody comes up with some type of prediction later on down the line, we should have a white slide in with the text of what the prediction was, like the Ian whiteboard, but it's on the screen.
I still have the whiteboard somewhere. I don't know where I put it, but I still have it somewhere.
All right, look. I don't know too much about Batman, but I do know about the Boston Celtics. We all know about them. They're rolling. They're 46-28. That's 18 games over 500. They got a dominant win on their home parquet. Their 5th straight win, 125-97 over the Utah Jazz. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown led the way with 26 points each. Robert Williams double-double, 12 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks. He was tonight's player spotlight. Peyton Pritchard, Daniel Tice, both 11 off the bench, and Marcus Smart, a career high, 13 assists. This is Boston's 5th straight win. Well, this is Utah's 2nd straight loss. They're 0-9 when trailing by 10 or more at halftime. Donovan Mitchell tonight, 37 points, led the way for all scorers. 13 of 24 from the field. Rudy Gobert, double-double, 14 points, 11 rebounds. Jordan Clarkson, 10 points off the bench. And you can see Conley, 9. Royce O'Neal with 6. Your final look at tonight's box score, 125-97. The Boston Celtics win their 5th straight game, and they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves, I believe it is, Sunday night on their home parquet, 6:00 p.m. tip-off. That is a first night of a back-to-back. Then they play Monday in Toronto. That is a home-and-home series. So guys, any final thoughts not involving Batman before we head off and we focus on the Minnesota Timberwolves?
I have two things. One, I hate the fact that we don't get to watch the Celtics for 3 days. That's so weird.
It's
and
weird.
two, oh damn, I just lost it. I had it. I knew what I was gonna say, and oh yeah, here it is. Remember. Okay, give me. All right, give me a break. Remember when we were all like super excited, like the first time we got over 500?
Yeah,
like back in earlier in the year. Like remember
it's
how
like
like
26 and 25.
Like honestly, no. Remember when we were like, "Oh my god, we're 3 games over 500 for the first time all season, for the first time in 2 years." I mean, it honestly feels like it's 2 different seasons. Like the first half of the season, like it feels like that was just like forever ago. Honestly,
I thought about this during the game. We look at teams in the past, and I look at it like, okay, the 2018-19 Celtics, the team that failed. The 2017-18 Celtics, that's the team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals and nearly made it to the finals, if not for a crazy LeBron performance and Jeff Green performance in Game 7. We look at these teams with that whole seasonal mark on there, 16-17. This year, I almost feel like we need to split the years. I almost feel like we need to say the 2021 Celtics, and then after January, it was the 2022 Celtics, because it just seems like 2 different teams entirely. At the beginning of the year, it was all mediocre play, and now we're one of the most dominant teams in the NBA. It does not feel – the vibes are not the same at all. It does not feel the same at all. But before we go, I have one more thing. Shout out to my cousin Carson. He's a viewer of the show. He was at the Warriors game tonight. Didn't see Steph Curry, didn't see Draymond Green, didn't see Klay Thompson, unfortunately, but he did see that altercation, and I'm sure that was entertaining in its own right. So shout out to him, viewer of the show. Love you, fam.
Big shout out. Big time. Shout out to Rob, who's sleeping on the couch in his dorm room. Sick as a dog. Sounded awful today. I played some Fortnite with him. Sounded, nasally, but he's feeling better. So just a cold. Don't worry, you COVID freaks. He's okay. He's doing good. But he should be back Sunday night, as we all should be back Sunday night for Celtics Timberwolves. Guys, that one should be really, really fun. I'm looking forward to that game. Last time the Timberwolves were in town, Jason Tatum dropped 60. So, and the Celtics got dominated.
And we almost lost that game too, which was crazy. That 60-point game that Tatum had, we almost lost that game if it didn't go into overtime.
And not only are the Celtics going to be a new-look team compared to the last time we played Minnesota, Minnesota is going to be too. Minnesota was missing a lot of guys when we played them a few months back, and the Celtics still proceeded to lose that game. One of the more dreadful losses of the season. But really quick before we go, one last look at the box score. Celtics 125, the Utah Jazz 97. The Celtics with yet another stellar wire-to-wire victory. That's Boston's 5th straight win for tonight. I'm Justin Lowe. That's Seamus Darlingo. That's Ian Angelo. We'll see you Sunday night, 6 p.m. tip-off in Boston. Celtics Timberwolves. We'll catch you guys.